She sat at the bar, wine glass halfway to her lips, when she heard it. That laugh. The one that used to make her shrink, make her small, make her disappear. Her ex-husband stood 15 feet away, designer suit, perfect hair, new wife clinging to his arm. He didn't see her at first, but when he did, his eyes went cold. Still frequenting places above your pay grade, I see. The insult landed loud, public, deliberate. Other diners turned to watch. Her hands shook. For 20 years, she'd absorbed his cruelty, made herself smaller, apologized for existing. Not anymore. Actually, she said, voice steady, I'm meeting my husband. His face went red. You remarried? 6 months ago. That's when her new husband walked out of the kitchen. Michelin-star chef, the man who'd taught her she deserved better, who'd shown her what real love looked like. Her ex-husband's face, priceless. But this story isn't about revenge. It's about something far more powerful. It's about a woman who chose herself, who rebuilt her life from nothing, who taught her children that love doesn't have to hurt. What happened next changed everything. For her kids, even for her ex-husband's new wife. Stay with me, because this is the story every woman who's ever felt invisible needs to hear. The wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. That laugh. God, she'd know that condescending laugh anywhere. Maggie Porter sat at the bar of Bellissimo, fingers tightening around the stem of her Pinot Noir. The Friday night crowd hummed with conversation and clinking silverware. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The amber lighting cast everything in warm, flattering tones. She'd been enjoying the peace, the waiting. Her husband, Julianne, was in the kitchen consulting with the head chef about seasonal menu changes. She'd ordered wine, watched the bartender work, felt the pleasant anticipation of a good meal ahead. Then that laugh shattered her calm. Her shoulders curved inward. An old reflex, making herself smaller, taking up less space. 20 years of marriage had taught her that art, the art of disappearing. She forced herself to straighten. That was then. This is now. The hostess stand sat 15 feet away. Maggie could see without turning her head. A blonde woman in a tight dress, an older woman in pearls, and him, Grant Whitmore, 45 years old, 6 feet tall, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, charcoal suit that probably cost $3,000. Her ex-husband, his voice carried, it always had, that boardroom voice, the one that expected attention and obedience. There must be some mistake. I'm Grant Whitmore, Vice President of Whitmore Financial. I take clients here regularly. The hostess, a young woman with dark hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, maintained her professional smile. I understand, sir, but we're fully booked tonight. The wait is approximately 40 minutes. 40 minutes? Grant's voice rose. That's unacceptable. Do you know how much money I spend here? Maggie's stomach twisted. She knew this pattern, the entitled anger, the belief that money and status exempted him from normal rules. She'd watched him berate waitstaff, hotel clerks, customer service representatives, anyone he deemed beneath him. The restaurant manager approached, tall, graying at the temples. His name tag read Marcus Sullivan. Good evening, sir. I'm Marcus, the restaurant manager. How can I help you? You can help me by seating my party immediately. I have reservations. Marcus checked his tablet. I'm sorry, sir. I don't see a reservation under Whitmore for tonight. Then someone made a mistake. Fix it. I wish I could, sir, but every table is occupied. I'm happy to take your number and call you when a table opens up. The bar is also available if you'd like to wait here. That's when Grant noticed her. His eyes swept the bar area, dismissive, assessing. Then they landed on Maggie. The recognition was instant. His expression shifted from annoyance to something harder, colder. Margaret, her full name, like an accusation. He'd always used her full name when he wanted to establish a distance, to put her in her place. Maggie set down her wine glass. Her hand was steady. That was progress. Grant. The blonde woman clutched Grant's arm. Brittany, of course, the girl was 28 now. She'd been 25 when Maggie found them in bed together. Young enough to be their daughter. The thought still made Maggie's skin crawl. The older woman was Eleanor Whitmore, Grant's mother, 70 years old, impeccably dressed, expression permanently set to disapproval, at least where Maggie was concerned. Grant moved closer to the bar, Brittany trailing him like a shadow, Eleanor following at a more measured pace. Still frequenting places above your pay grade, I see. The words landed like a slap. Public, deliberate, designed to humiliate, above her pay grade. He'd said that during the divorce, about the house in Westchester, about the BMW she'd driven, about every single thing she'd helped build during 20 years of marriage, as if she'd been a freeloader, a charity case, instead of the woman who'd raised his children and managed his household and sacrificed her own career so he could climb the corporate ladder. Maggie felt the eyes of nearby diners turning toward them. Heat crept up her neck, the old shame, the familiar mortification. Then something inside her shifted, hardened. No, she was done with shame, done with making herself small to accommodate Grant's ego. "I'm meeting someone," she said. Her voice was calm, clear, louder than she'd intended but steady. Grant smirked, that expression she'd once found charming, before she realized it was usually at someone else's expense. "Of course you are. Let me guess. Another one of your pottery classmates? Or is it book club this time?" The dismissal in his tone, the casual cruelty. This was the man she'd loved for 2 decades. The man she'd believed when he said she was overreacting. Too sensitive, too emotional, and too much and never enough all at once. Brittany giggled, high-pitched, nervous. The sound scraped against Maggie's ears like nails on a chalkboard. "Actually," Maggie said, "I'm meeting my husband." The word landed like a bomb. Husband. Grant's face flushed, red creeping up from his collar. "You remarried? When?" "6 months ago." The silence stretched, uncomfortable, thick. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Brittany's mouth formed a small O of surprise. Grant looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. Eleanor found her voice first. "How quickly you moved on. I always said you never truly valued family." 20 years, 2 children, countless holiday dinners hosting Eleanor's criticisms. Family gatherings where Maggie bent herself into impossible shapes trying to please this woman, trying to be good enough, trying to earn approval that would never come. And this is what she got. "You never valued family." The old Maggie would have absorbed the blow, would have explained, defended, apologized. The old Maggie would have made herself smaller still. The new Maggie was done shrinking. "I valued family enough to stay when your son stopped coming home at night." The words came out clear, steady. "I valued family enough to pretend I didn't smell perfume that wasn't mine. I valued family enough to keep smiling at Christmas while he texted his mistress under the table." Complete silence. Even the nearby conversations seemed to pause. Maggie could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the weight of attention from every direction. Grant's jaw clenched. A muscle twitched in his cheek. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" Maggie heard her voice rise slightly. She pulled it back down, controlled. "I'm sitting quietly at a bar. You came over here. You made comments about my finances. I simply responded." Always the victim. Grant shook his head, the gesture so familiar, so condescending. "This is exactly why our marriage failed. Your constant need for drama. Your inability to handle adult situations with grace. The gaslighting, even now, even after everything." Her therapist's voice echoed in her mind. Dr. Sarah Chen had said this exact thing would happen. When someone tells you they never said something you both know they said, they're not confused, they're controlling. "Our marriage failed," Maggie said, each word deliberate, "because you had an affair with your assistant." Brittany flinched. The bartender, a young man with tattoos covering both arms, suddenly became very interested in polishing wine glasses at the far end of the bar. The couple at the table behind them weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. Grant's face went from red to purple. "I don't have to stand here and listen to this." He turned to Marcus, who'd been standing nearby looking deeply uncomfortable. "I want to speak to the owner. This woman is harassing us." Marcus maintained his professional composure. Maggie had to give him credit for that. Sir, the lady was here first. She's a guest of the restaurant. If you'd like, I can check on your table status. Forget it. Grant grabbed Brittany's hand, hard enough that she stumbled slightly. Come on, we're leaving. This place clearly doesn't know how to treat important clients. He stormed toward the exit. Brittany hurried to keep up with his long strides. Eleanor paused, turned back to Maggie, delivered one final look of pure disdain. I raised my son to have standards. It's a shame he ever lowered them. Then she swept out after them, back straight, head high, every inch the offended matriarch. The restaurant slowly returned to normal volume. Conversations resumed. The jazz music seemed louder suddenly. Or maybe Maggie's ears had been ringing. Her hands shook. She gripped the edge of the bar to steady them. Her whole body felt like it was vibrating. Adrenaline, fear, anger, relief. A cocktail of emotions she couldn't quite name. A warm hand covered hers, large, calloused from knife work. Familiar. Julien. She looked up into his dark eyes. Concern creased his forehead. His accent was thicker when he was worried. How long were you standing there, Yenna? She asked. Long enough, he signaled the bartender. Long enough to hear my wife handle herself with remarkable grace. I don't feel graceful. I feel like I'm going to throw up. And Julien helped her off the bar stool, his hand on the small of her back, steady, grounding. Then let's get some air. The kitchen consultation can wait. They walked through the restaurant. Maggie was hyper-aware of eyes following them. Whispers. She'd just provided the evening's entertainment. Dinner and a show. Outside, the September air hit her like a splash of cold water. New York in early fall. Still warm during the day, but cool at night. She took a deep breath, then another. Her hands were still shaking. Julien didn't speak, didn't fill the silence with meaningless platitudes or false comfort. He just stood beside her, solid, present, let her breathe. This was what she'd needed, what she'd been missing for 20 years. Someone who understood that sometimes the most supportive thing was simply being there. After several minutes, Maggie's breathing steadied. Her hands stopped shaking. She looked at Julien, really looked at him. He was 38, 7 years younger than Grant, but he seemed older in ways that mattered, more settled, more comfortable in his own skin. No need to prove anything or dominate anyone. I'm sorry, she said. That wasn't how I wanted your consultation to go. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have just ignored him. I should have, Margaret. He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders, gentle but firm. You should have done exactly what you did. You stood up for yourself. But the old shame crept in anyway. The voice that sounded suspiciously like Eleanor, like Grant. The voice that said she was too much, too emotional, too dramatic, making mountains out of molehills. I made a scene, she whispered. He made a scene. You simply refused to accept his treatment. There's a difference. Maggie's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out. A text from Claire. Her best friend had a sixth sense for when Maggie needed her. The message read, "You okay? Ruby just called, said her dad is losing it. Something about seeing you." Of course. Grant went straight to the kids. Maggie's stomach dropped. That familiar feeling of dread, the exhaustion of being a divorced parent, the constant worry about what version of events the kids heard first. She showed Julien the text. He read it, and his expression darkened. He's calling your daughter to complain about you. It's what he does. Makes himself the victim. Turns the kids into referees. Maggie typed back to Claire. I'm fine. At Bellissimo, long story. Call you later. But her mind was already spiraling. Ruby and Tommy. They were old enough to understand that divorce wasn't simple. Weren't they? Ruby had been 17 when Maggie left. Tommy, 14, old enough to see the truth. Except Grant had always been good at crafting narratives, at rewriting history, at making himself the hero and everyone else the villain. What are you thinking? Julien asked. That I need to call Ruby, that I need to do damage control, that I need to explain what really happened before Grant's version becomes the truth. The words tumbled out, fast, anxious. You'll call her, but first you need to breathe, to center yourself, to remember what's true regardless of what he says. What's true? That you're not crazy, that 20 years of being told you're too sensitive doesn't make it true. That you have the right to exist in public spaces without being verbally attacked. He paused. That you deserve better than what he gave you. Maggie felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. I'm not crazy. I know what happened. 20 years of being told I'm too sensitive doesn't make it true. The words felt revolutionary, like claiming space that had always been denied. Her phone rang. Ruby, of course, Maggie's heart pounded. She answered. Mom, Dad just called. He's really upset. Here we go. I know, honey, I ran into him at a restaurant. He said you ambushed him, that you made a scene in front of Brittany and Grandma Eleanor, that you were drinking at a bar alone and started harassing them. The story had already shifted, morphed, drinking alone, harassing them. By tomorrow, who knew what version Grant would be telling? She could hear it now. Day drinking, alcoholism, instability. Each retelling adding new embellishments, new accusations. That's not what happened, Ruby. Then what did happen? Because Dad said, I was meeting Julianne, your stepfather, at a restaurant where he was consulting with the head chef. Your father came in. He approached me at the bar where I was sitting. He made comments about my finances and my life. I responded. That's the truth. Silence on the line. Maggie could hear Ruby processing, choosing, weighing her father's dramatic version against her mother's calmer explanation. Okay. Ruby's voice softened slightly. Okay, Mom, I believe you. The relief was overwhelming, physical. Maggie's knees felt weak. Thank you. But Dad sounded really upset. Maybe you could just avoid him? Make things easier? Make things easier. Maggie closed her eyes. When had easier become synonymous with smaller? When had easier meant accepting mistreatment, absorbing abuse to keep the peace? I'll do my best, honey. How's school? They talked for another few minutes. Safe topics, surface conversations, classes and roommates, and the cafeteria food. When they hung up, Maggie felt exhausted. Julian watched her, patient, waiting. She believed you. She did. Maggie leaned against the restaurant's brick exterior. But she also asked me to avoid him, to make things easier. And will you? I don't know. I don't want to put the kids in the middle, but I also don't want to keep shrinking myself so he can feel bigger. Then don't. Julianne said it like it was simple, like standing up for herself wouldn't have consequences, like the world wouldn't punish her for taking up space. But Maggie knew better. Standing up to Grant always had consequences. Inside Bellissimo, Marcus approached them with an apologetic smile. Mrs. Beaumont, I'm so sorry about that scene. That gentleman was completely out of line. Mrs. Beaumont, the name still surprised Maggie. 6 months married and it sounded foreign. Nice, but foreign, like trying on someone else's clothes. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate you handling it professionally. Of course, though I have to say, Marcus lowered his voice, conspiratorial. When Chef Beaumont came out of the kitchen and I realized you were his wife, that man's face when he saw who you came with? Priceless. Julian shook his head, amused despite himself. Marcus, don't encourage gossip. Not gossip, Chef, justice. Marcus grinned. Your table is ready whenever you are. Corner booth. Quiet. Private. They followed him inside. The corner booth was perfect, away from the main dining room. Dim lighting, white tablecloth, fresh flowers. The kind of table Grant used to request and then spend the entire meal on his phone. Maggie slid into the booth. The leather was soft, worn in that expensive way. She could see the bar from here, the stool where she'd been sitting, where everything had happened. She'd done that thing again, the thing where she made herself smaller, shoulders curled inward, voice dropping, taking up less space. She'd spent years perfecting the art of disappearing, sitting across from Grant at fancy restaurants and wondering if the couples around them could tell. Could they see that the woman in the nice dress was counting the minutes until she could go home? Could they tell she was invisible to the man across from her? Julianne reached across the table, took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, real. Talk to me. I thought I was over it, over him, over caring what he thinks. Being over someone doesn't mean their words stop having impact. It means you don't let those words define you anymore. He called my work hobbies during the divorce, my freelance editing, 20 years of building a career around raising kids, working from home so I could be there for Ruby and Tommy, and he called it a hobby. The wine arrived. Julian had pre-ordered a Burgundy she loved, earthy, complex, nothing like the sweet wines Grant used to insist she preferred. Julian remembered what she actually liked, not what he thought she should like. Tell me about the moment you knew you had to leave. Julian's question was gentle but direct. He had a way of asking difficult questions that felt like invitations rather than interrogations. Maggie sipped the wine, let it sit on her tongue. The memory surfaced sharp and clear. She'd spent 2 years trying to bury it, but it was always there, waiting. 2.5 years ago, spring, the tulips in our front yard were blooming. I'd gone to the dentist, cleaning, nothing major. They finished early. She could still see it, the perfect suburban street, colonial houses with perfect lawns, station wagons and SUVs in every driveway. The American dream wrapped in vinyl siding. I pulled into our driveway. Grant's car was there. Middle of a Tuesday afternoon. He was supposed to be in Boston for a conference. Leaving that morning. Coming back Thursday. Julianne squeezed her hand. Silent encouragement to continue. I went inside. Everything was quiet. That kind of quiet that's actually loud. That screams something's wrong. I could hear voices upstairs. I climbed the stairs. Each step felt like walking through water. Heavy, slow, like my body knew before my brain did. The bedroom door, cracked open. She'd pushed it wider. The hinges had made that familiar squeak. Grant had been meaning to oil them for months. Grant, Brittany. The girl was 25, I knew her. We'd met at the company holiday party. I complimented her dress. I'd been kind to her. Brittany had screamed, scrambled for clothes. Grant hadn't screamed. He'd just looked at Maggie, annoyed, like she'd interrupted an important meeting. He said, Jesus, Margaret, ever heard of knocking? In my own bedroom, in my own house. He asked if I'd heard of knocking. The absurdity of it, the audacity. Maggie still couldn't quite believe it had actually happened that way. I asked how long. He said it wasn't what it looked like. I asked again. How long, Grant? Brittany was crying, apologizing. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Like it was an accident. Like she'd tripped and fallen onto my husband's penis. Julian's expression darkened, but he didn't interrupt. Grant said 8 months, just like that. Flat, factual, 8 months. And if you hadn't come home early, you never would have known. We could have all been happy. That was the part that shattered her. Not the affair itself, not even the 8 months. But the fact that he genuinely believed she'd been happy, that he thought she was so stupid or so blind that she had no idea something was wrong. How invisible had she been? I told him to get out. He said I was overreacting, that we could work through it for the kids. I told him again, get out, today, now, pack your things and leave. Grant had laughed, actually laughed. You're overreacting. We're adults. We can handle this maturely. Think about Ruby and Tommy. I told him I wasn't overreacting. I was reacting exactly appropriately. He'd cheated for 8 months, in our home, in our bed, with a woman young enough to be our daughter. The memory still felt raw, like picking at a scab that hadn't quite healed. Eleanor arrived later, after Grant called her, after he'd spun his version of events. She'd never particularly liked me. Now she had concrete reasons. Eleanor's words echoed across 2 years. You're throwing away a 20-year marriage over one mistake? I told her 8 months isn't a mistake. It's a choice he made 240 times. She said men stray sometimes, that it's natural, that you work through it, that you don't destroy a family. Maggie could still see Eleanor's face. The disappointment, the judgment, the absolute certainty that Maggie was in the wrong. I looked at this woman who'd raised a son who thought cheating was a minor inconvenience, and I felt nothing but pity. I told her I'm not destroying the family. He did that. I'm just refusing to pretend otherwise. Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then, you were incredibly brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. I'd been a wife for 20 years, a mother for 20 years. I didn't know who I was without those roles. Mrs. Grant Whitmore, Ruby and Tommy's mom, that's who I was. Strip that away, and what was left? You found out. I did. Maggie smiled for the first time since Grant appeared. Small, but real. I found out I could breathe again. Once I stopped holding my breath, waiting for him to come home, waiting for him to notice me, waiting for him to love me the way I loved him. Their food arrived. Julianne had ordered while they were outside things he knew she loved. Burrata with heirloom tomatoes and basil. Homemade pasta with wild mushrooms. Simple. Perfect. The way Grant never had. Grant always ordered for her. Decided what she should eat. What she would like. Never asked what she actually wanted. Tell me how you met Julianne, people always asked. As if there was a perfect story. A rom-com explanation for finding love after devastation. The truth was simpler and more profound. 1 year ago, 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Maggie had been living in a small apartment in Tarrytown. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Nothing like the Colonial in Westchester with its 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and perfectly manicured lawn. But it was hers, really hers. Her name on the lease. Her furniture chosen with care. No Grant criticizing the couch color. No Eleanor suggesting improvements. Ruby was away at college, freshman at NYU. Tommy was with Grant on weekends per their custody arrangement. Maggie had time, empty time, lonely time. The loneliness was crushing. Not the lack of Grant, but the lack of purpose, of identity. Who was she without someone needing her? Without someone to take care of? Claire had insisted, her best friend since college. Take a cooking class with me. Come on, you used to love cooking before Grant complained about every meal. The class was at a culinary institute in Manhattan. French fundamentals, 8 Wednesday evenings. Maggie had felt ridiculous. A 42-year-old divorcee learning to properly dice an onion. The instructor was Julian Beaumont, serious, focused. French accent thick enough that Maggie had to concentrate to understand his instructions. He demonstrated knife techniques with precision that bordered on meditation. You're massacring that chicken. He'd appeared at her station during week 3. May I? His hands had guided hers, showing the proper technique. How to break down the bird efficiently. Respectfully. Patient, but exacting. Better. You have potential. You just need to trust yourself. Trust herself. When had she stopped doing that? Over 8 weeks, Maggie learned more than cooking. She learned that she could follow her instincts, that her taste mattered, that precision and creativity could coexist, that food could be an expression of love rather than a source of criticism. Julianne noticed her, really noticed her, the way she seasoned by intuition, the way she plated with care, the small things that revealed character. You have a gift, he'd said after class one evening. Week 7, they were cleaning their stations. Not just for cooking, for feeding people, there's a difference. They'd talked, started with food, moved to life. She told him about the divorce, expected judgment, got understanding. My parents divorced when I was young, Julianne said. My mother raised me alone in Lyon. She was the strongest person I've ever known. She taught me that leaving something broken isn't failure. Staying would have been. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't the absence of fear. It's continuing despite it. Their first date wasn't technically a date. It was a trip to the Union Square Farmers Market. Julian teaching her to select produce. The way he examined tomatoes with reverence. The way he spoke to farmers with respect. Asking about growing conditions. Harvest dates. Treating them as the experts they were. In France, he'd explained, a chef is only as good as his relationships with his suppliers. You must know where your food comes from, who grew it, with what care. Maggie watched him and realized she was seeing what respect looked like, what partnership looked like, what it meant to value someone's expertise rather than diminish it. Their second date was definitely a date, a small bistro in Greenwich Village. cozy, intimate, candles on every table. Julian ordered in French, translated descriptions, made her try things she'd never have ordered herself. Close your eyes, he'd instructed. Taste this. Don't think. Just experience. Maggie closed her eyes, tasted. Duck, confit, rich, complex, perfect. What do you taste? Heaven? She'd laughed, her first real laugh in months. What else? Psst. She concentrated, really tasted. Herbs, thyme maybe, and something sweet. Fig? Good, very good. You have a palate. Has anyone ever told you that? No one had told her much of anything, except what she was doing wrong, what she needed to change, how she fell short. 3 months later, Julienne proposed. Simple, direct, completely French. They'd been cooking together in his apartment. A Sunday afternoon, rain streaking the windows, jazz playing softly. She was chopping vegetables for ratatouille. He was preparing the sauce. I'm not a young man looking for games, he'd said. No preamble, no romantic setup. Just truth. I know what I want. I want you. Marry me. Maggie's knife had stopped mid-chop. You barely know me. I know you're kind, you're resilient, you're learning to trust your instincts again. I know you make me laugh. You make me want to cook for someone again. That's enough. The rest we'll learn together. She'd wanted to say yes immediately, but doubt crept in. What if I'm not ready? What if I'm too damaged from my marriage to Grant? You're not damaged, you're healing. There's a difference, and I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be willing, to try, to trust that love doesn't have to hurt. Love doesn't have to hurt. Such a simple statement, such a radical concept. That night, alone in her apartment, Maggie sat in the dark. 2 in the morning. She couldn't sleep. She walked through the small space, her sanctuary. She made tea, Earl Grey, the kind Grant hated the smell of. She drank it without guilt, without apology. The window overlooked the Hudson, dark water reflecting city lights. She'd always loved water, found it calming. Grant had wanted to live inland, away from water. He said waterfront property was overpriced. Her phone sat on the counter, silent. No demanding texts, no passive-aggressive messages, no walking on eggshells waiting for his mood to shift. Was she ready to marry again, to trust someone with her heart? But here's the thing. Julian didn't want her heart. Not in the consuming, controlling way Grant had. Julian wanted her partnership, her company, her equal participation in building something new. She picked up her phone, typed 3 letters. Yes. His response was immediate despite the hour. You've made me the happiest man alive. No games, no manipulation, no doubt about his sincerity, just honest joy. Maggie had cried, but not from sadness, from relief, from hope, from the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of being truly seen for the first time in decades. Now sitting across from Julian at Bellissimo, Maggie squeezed his hand. I said yes to you because you're the opposite of everything I escaped. You listen, you respect my opinions. You encourage my interests instead of calling them hobbies. I encourage your interests because they're part of who you are, and who you are is extraordinary. Grant would say I'm being dramatic. Grant is a fool who lost something precious because he never valued it in the first place. Their server approached, young, maybe 23, nervous, clearly starstruck by Julienne. Chef Beaumont, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but the owner wanted me to let you know he'd love to speak with you about the menu consultation whenever you're ready. Julienne glanced at Maggie. What do you think? Are you up for talking shop? Or would you rather I reschedule? The old Maggie would have deferred, would have said whatever he preferred, would have made herself small and accommodating, would have prioritized his work over her feelings. The new Maggie considered honestly, I'd like to stay, if you don't mind me listening in. I never mind you being part of my world. They moved to a private room, small, elegant, a table set with plates showcasing different dishes. The owner, Luca, was a gregarious Italian man in his 50s. He greeted Julienne with enthusiasm. Chef, thank you for making time. Your reputation precedes you. Luca noticed Maggie. And this must be the beautiful wife you mentioned. My beautiful, intelligent, insightful wife, Julianne corrected. Maggie has an excellent palate. I trust her opinions completely. The words wrapped around her like armor, like validation, like being seen. Maggie settled into her chair, ready to participate, ready to be present, ready to matter. The menu consultation lasted an hour. Luca wanted to elevate his offerings without losing the traditional Italian soul of the restaurant. Walk the line between innovation and authenticity. It was a delicate balance. Julianne made suggestions: seasonal rotations, partnerships with local farms, ways to highlight ingredients rather than overcomplicate them. His philosophy was simple: great food starts with great ingredients. Everything else is just technique. Maggie surprised herself by chiming in. What if you kept the classic dishes but offered elevated versions as specials? Give regulars what they love, but show your range to adventurous diners. Luca lit up. Yes, exactly. The carbonara stays, but maybe also a carbonara with guanciale from a specific region, with eggs from farms we can name. Tell the story of the ingredients? Julian nodded approvingly. Storytelling through ingredients. That's Maggie's strength. She understands that people don't just eat food. They eat the story behind it, the care, the intention. The moment she realized she had valuable opinions, that her thoughts mattered, that she didn't need permission to take up space in a conversation. It felt like remembering how to fly, like discovering muscles she'd forgotten she had. They left Bellissimo at 10:30. The September night had cooled further. Manhattan in early fall, that perfect temperature between summer heat and winter cold. Julian draped his jacket over Maggie's shoulders. It smelled like him, soap and wine and kitchen spices. Her phone buzzed, multiple texts. She unlocked it with dread building in her stomach. Grant, we need to talk about Ruby. She's upset. Thanks to your scene tonight. Tommy, Dad told me what happened. Why can't you just be nice to Brittany? She's trying. Eleanor, I should have known you'd cause problems. Grant deserves better. He always has. The messages pummeled her. Each one a small violence, a tiny cut, death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's what the marriage had been. That's what the aftermath continued to be. Maggie's hand shook. The phone felt heavy, like it weighed 100 pounds. Julian saw. He always saw. What is it? She showed him, watched his jaw tighten, the muscle jump in his cheek. Julian rarely got angry, but when he did, it was cold, controlled, dangerous in a quiet way. May I respond, he asked. To Grant? No, to you. May I respond to you so you hear what I think before their voices drown out your own? Maggie nodded. She needed his clarity, his certainty, his unwavering belief in her worth. You didn't cause problems tonight. Grant did. You didn't make a scene. Grant did. You didn't ambush anyone. You were there first, existing in a public space. He chose to approach you. He chose to make comments. He chose to escalate. You have done nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you hear me? But the kids are old enough to understand complexity. Ruby believed you when you explained. Tommy will too once he hears your side without Grant's filter distorting everything. And Eleanor? Eleanor raised a man who thinks infidelity is a minor inconvenience. Her opinion is worth exactly nothing. Somewhere along the way, I became invisible. But that was then. This is now. I matter. My voice matters. My truth matters. The words felt revolutionary, like claiming territory that had been stolen. They walked to Julianne's car, a practical Volvo, not Grant's flashy BMW. Everything about Julian was substance over show. He drove because he needed transportation, not because he needed to prove his success. I need to respond to them, Maggie said, but I don't know what to say. Say the truth, calmly, clearly, without apologizing for existing. She typed carefully, each word chosen with intention. To Ruby, Dad and I ran into each other. It was awkward. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle. I love you. Let's have lunch this week. To Tommy, I'd love to hear your thoughts when we can talk in person, without anyone else's version influencing the conversation. I love you. See you Friday. To Grant, The children are not weapons. Stop using them as such. We can co-parent respectfully, but that requires you to stop rewriting history and assassinating my character. To Eleanor, no response. Julianne was right. Her opinion was worth nothing. Giving it attention only empowered it. Maggie hit send before she could second guess. Her heart pounded. She'd never been this direct with Grant. Never set boundaries this firmly. 20 years of marriage had trained her to be accommodating, endlessly flexible to avoid his anger. There, Julian said, that's the woman I married. Strong, clear, unafraid. I'm terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. You're the bravest person I know. They drove back to Maggie's apartment in Terrytown. She'd kept it after the wedding, her space, her sanctuary. Julian had understood without question. He had his apartment in Manhattan near his restaurant. They split time between both places. Healthy relationships allow for independence, he'd said, when she worried she was being difficult. I don't need to consume every moment of your life to know I'm important to you. We're partners, not parasites. What a concept, what a revelation, what a relief. Inside her apartment, Maggie made tea, old habits, comfort rituals. The electric kettle hissed and clicked off. She poured water over a bag of chamomile, watched the water turn golden. Julian sat at her small kitchen table, patient, present, not scrolling his phone, not distracted, just there. Tell me about Ruby and Tommy, he said. Tell me what Grant doesn't let you say. And Maggie did. She told him about Ruby's anxiety, how it started in middle school, how Grant dismissed it as attention-seeking, teenage drama, hormones, how Maggie found a therapist and paid for sessions with her freelance money because Grant refused to acknowledge the problem. She told him about Tommy's dyslexia, how Grant's impatience with his reading struggles made Tommy feel stupid, how Maggie hired a tutor in secret, how Tommy's confidence slowly rebuilt once someone treated his dyslexia as a learning difference rather than a character flaw. She told him about being the buffer, the emotional shock absorber, the one who managed Grant's mood so the kids didn't have to, who made excuses for his absence, who protected them from his criticism, who bent herself into impossible shapes trying to keep everyone happy. I was so busy keeping peace, she said. I forgot what it felt like to actually be peaceful. The memory surfaced unbidden. 5 years ago, Ruby was 14, Tommy 11. They were at dinner. Friday night, Maggie had made roast chicken, Grant's favorite. She'd spent hours on it, trying to get everything perfect. Grant's mood was foul, something about a missed promotion. He'd been passed over for senior vice president. Again, it was never his fault, always politics, always someone else being favored unfairly. This chicken is dry, he announced. No greeting, no acknowledgement of effort, just criticism. Maggie's heart sank. I can make something else. There's pasta, Never mind, I'm not hungry anyway. Ruby's fork paused midair. Tommy kept eating, head down. They'd learned to make themselves small during Grant's moods. Disappear into the wallpaper. Don't draw attention, don't become the target. How was school? Maggie tried to redirect, change the subject, lighten the atmosphere. Fine. Ruby's voice was small, careful. Just fine? Didn't you have that English test? The one on Great Gatsby? I got a B+. A B+? Grant looked up. What happened? You're better than that. Grant, a B+ is good. It's not her best. Ruby, you need to focus. College applications are coming. You want to get into a good school, don't you? Show those admission officers you're serious. Ruby was 14. College applications were 3 years away, but Grant always pushed, always demanded more. Nothing was ever enough. I did focus, Ruby said quietly. I studied really hard. Miss Rodriguez said it was one of the best essays in the class. Clearly not hard enough, or you would have gotten an A. Grant stood, tossed his napkin on the table. I'm going to my office. I have work to do. At least someone in this house has standards. He left. Ruby's eyes filled with tears. Tommy excused himself to his room. Maggie sat at the table surrounded by the wreckage of Grant's mood. The carefully prepared meal. No one was eating. She'd found Ruby in her room an hour later, crying. Not just about the test, about feeling like she'd never be good enough, about feeling like she disappointed her father constantly, about wondering what was wrong with her. You're perfect. Maggie had held her, smoothed her hair, felt her own heart breaking. You're smart and kind and trying your best. That's all anyone can ask. But Dad, your father has his own issues. They're not your responsibility. You got a B plus on a difficult test. You should be proud. I'm proud. That's what matters. But was it? Did it matter, or did Grant's disapproval carry more weight than Maggie's approval? She'd never been sure. Now, telling Julian the story, Maggie felt the old anger rise. Fresh, hot, righteous. The kids are good people despite him, not because of him, she said. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud I gave them one parent who saw them, who listened, who loved them without conditions or impossible standards. They're lucky to have you. I hope they know that. I hope Grant's version of events doesn't poison them against me, doesn't make them doubt what they know to be true. Truth has a way of winning. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. Ruby believed you tonight. That's evidence of the foundation you built. She has the capacity to think critically because you taught her how. Julian stood, held out his hand. Come to bed. Tomorrow we'll deal with whatever comes next. Tonight, rest. They moved to the bedroom. Simple, cozy, a queen bed with a white duvet. Nightstands Maggie had refinished herself. Curtain sheets sewn, every detail chosen with care. Nothing like the Westchester house with its professionally decorated rooms that never quite felt like home. As she fell asleep curled against Julian's warmth, Maggie realized something. Grant's words tonight had hurt. The text from Eleanor and the kids stung, but they didn't destroy her, didn't make her question her worth, didn't send her spiraling into self-doubt. She'd survived, more than survived. She'd stood her ground, spoken her truth, set boundaries, and the world hadn't ended. Progress, real, measurable progress. Saturday morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through the curtains. Maggie woke to the smell of coffee, real coffee, not the instant kind Grant preferred because it was faster. Julian had left a note on his pillow. At the restaurant, brunch prep, call me if you need me. Love you, Jay. The note made her smile. Love you, no conditions, no qualifications, no fine print. She made her way to the kitchen, poured coffee from the pot Julian had prepared, took it to her small balcony. 2 folding chairs and a tiny table. View of the Hudson, not much but hers. The September morning was cool, crisp, the kind of morning that felt like possibility, like new beginnings. Her phone rang. Ruby. Maggie's stomach tightened. She answered. Hi, honey. Mom. Ruby's voice was thick. She'd been crying. Can we talk? Can I come over? Of course. When? Now I'm already in Tarrytown. I drove up early. I'm at the coffee shop on Main Street. Come over. I'll make breakfast. 30 minutes later, Ruby arrived. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair in a messy bun. Still beautiful at 19. Still Grant's daughter in the sharp intelligence of her eyes and the stubborn set of her jaw. They hugged, long and tight. Maggie smelled Ruby's shampoo, the same herbal essences she'd used since high school. Some things didn't change. Pancakes? Maggie offered. Your chocolate chip ones? Is there any other kind? They moved to the kitchen. The ritual was familiar, comforting. Maggie mixed batter while Ruby sat at the counter. They talked around the issue first. School, Ruby's roommate, the art history class she was taking, her new boyfriend Jake. A detail that made Maggie's heart squeeze. Ruby trusting her with this information. Not hiding it, not afraid of judgment. Finally, with pancakes served and eaten. Tell me about last night, your version. So Maggie did. Honestly, completely. Every detail. Ruby listened without interrupting. Her expression shifting from neutral to thoughtful to sound to angry. And then Dad texted you, Maggie finished. Using you as a messenger, again. Ruby's face crumpled. Why does he do that? Because it works. Because it makes me back down to avoid hurting you. Because he knows you're my soft spot, my vulnerability, and he exploits that. But it does hurt me. Being in the middle hurts me. Having to referee my parents hurts me. Having to choose sides hurts me. The moment Ruby understood, the flash of recognition on her face, that instant when a child realizes their parent is human, flawed, manipulative, not perfect. It's painful to witness, necessary but painful, like watching someone grow up and fast forward. I know, sweetheart, I know. I believed him at first. Ruby's voice broke. Fresh tears spilled over. When he called last night, he sounded so hurt, so victimized, so shocked that you would attack him in public. I believed him. That's what he's good at. Creating narratives, making himself the hero, making everyone else the villain. But then I thought about it, about how many times this has happened, how many times he tells me something, and then when I hear your side, it's completely different, and how you never call me first to complain about him. You never use me as a therapist or a weapon or a validation machine. Maggie's throat tightened. I never wanted you to choose sides. I still don't. Your father is your father. You're allowed to love him, to have a relationship with him. That has nothing to do with me. But he does make me choose. He always has. Ruby wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, like she was 5 again. Grandma Eleanor, too. Last night she called me, after Dad called. She was so angry, told me you were always cold to her, always ungrateful, that you trapped Dad with a pregnancy, that you forced him to marry you. The lies stung, after 20 years of hosting Eleanor's holidays, of listening to her criticisms with a smile, of trying desperately to please an unpleasable woman, of bending herself into shapes trying to earn approval that would never come. I trapped him? Maggie managed to say. Her voice was steady. That was something. That's what she said. That you got pregnant with me on purpose to force him to marry you. That you ruined his life. That he could have done so much better. Ruby, Maggie reached across the counter, took her daughter's hands. They were cold, shaking. Look at me. Your father and I dated for 3 years before I got pregnant. We were already engaged, already planning the wedding, already living together. You were wanted, desperately wanted, by both of us. I have the engagement announcement from the newspaper. I have photos. I have evidence if you need to see it. I know, logically I know, but hearing her say it, Ruby shook her head. It made me wonder what else she's lied about. What else Dad's lied about. How much of what I've always believed about the divorce is actually true versus what they wanted me to believe. I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you this. Every version of events I've ever given you has been the truth as I experienced it. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've probably screwed up in ways I don't even realize. But I've never lied to you, not about the big things. Dad lies a lot, doesn't he? The question hung heavy, loaded. Maggie could use this moment, could pile on, could unleash 20 years of hurt and betrayal and resentment, could turn Ruby fully against Grant, could win. But that's not who she wanted to be, not the mother she wanted to be. Your father tells the version of the truth that makes him feel better about his choices. Whether that's lying or self-deception or selective memory, I don't know. But it's not healthy, and it's not fair to you. You deserve parents who tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Did he cheat more than once? More than just Brittany? Maggie's heart broke, clean, sharp, like glass. Do you really want to know? Yes, I'm 19. I'm old enough for the truth, whatever it is. So Maggie told her about the suspicions before Brittany, the unexplained absences, the credit card bills with charges from restaurants Grant claimed were business lunches, the perfume that wasn't hers, the late nights that became later and later, the gut feeling that something was wrong, the constant gaslighting that made her doubt her own instincts. I don't have proof of other affairs, Maggie admitted. No photos or confessions. But Brittany wasn't a one-time mistake or a moment of weakness. It was a pattern that finally became undeniable. And I think there were others before her. I just never caught him. Ruby processed this in silence, staring at her empty plate. Finally, Brittany's only 9 years older than me. I know. That's disgusting. It's inappropriate, yes. Mom, you can say it's disgusting. You don't have to be diplomatic about dad's choices. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to call it what it is. You're right, it's disgusting, it's pathetic. A 42-year-old man having an affair with his 25-year-old assistant while his wife holds the family together. It's textbook midlife crisis nonsense. And I wasted years trying to understand it, trying to see what I'd done wrong, what I could fix, how I could be better, sexier, more interesting, less demanding, more accommodating. The words poured out. Hot, angry, liberating. You didn't do anything wrong, Ruby said firmly. I know that now, but at the time I believed him when he said I was too critical, too cold, too focused on the kids, too tired, too busy, too something, always too something, never enough of something else. That's gaslighting. Yes, it is. And I let it happen. I accepted it. I internalized it. I made myself smaller and smaller, thinking that would fix things. Thinking if I could just be perfect enough, he'd love me the way I needed, the way I deserved. They sat in silence, processing. The morning sun had moved higher. Light streamed through the kitchen window. Dust motes danced in the beams. Ruby spoke first. I don't want to choose between you and Dad. You don't have to. But I do. Every time he calls to complain about you, I'm choosing. Every time Grandma Eleanor makes comments and I stay silent, I'm choosing. Every time I listen and don't defend you, I'm choosing him. Every time I ask you to make things easier by avoiding him, I'm choosing his comfort over your dignity. Ruby, no, Mom, let me finish. Ruby stood, paced the small kitchen. I've been complicit by staying neutral, by playing Switzerland, by acting like both sides are equal when they're not, by letting him paint you as the villain while you stay quiet to protect me. I've been letting him abuse you by proxy, and I'm done. Maggie watched her daughter transform. This was the moment children become adults, when they stop accepting their parents' narratives wholesale and form their own judgments, when they see their parents as flawed humans rather than infallible authorities. What are you going to do? Maggie asked. I'm going to talk to Dad today, and I'm going to set boundaries, real ones, about how he talks about you, about using me as a messenger, about expecting me to manage his emotions. And if he doesn't respect those boundaries, I'll limit contact until he does. That's your choice to make. But don't do it because of me. Do it because it's right for you, because it's healthy for you, because you deserve a father who doesn't weaponize you. I am doing it for me, because being his emotional dumping ground is killing me, because I'm tired of feeling guilty for loving you both, because I deserve a father who doesn't manipulate me, who doesn't use me, who doesn't make me feel responsible for his happiness. Starting over feels impossible, but staying feels worse. Ruby understands that now. She's choosing herself, just like I did, just like I had to, just like everyone eventually has to. They hugged again, longer this time, tighter. Maggie felt Ruby's strength, her resolve, her growth. This was what good parenting looked like. Not creating a mini version of yourself, not demanding obedience, but raising a human capable of thinking critically, of setting boundaries, of choosing their own well-being. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't see clearly sooner. I'm sorry I made you smaller to keep him comfortable. I'm sorry I asked you to avoid him instead of asking him to stop attacking you. You see clearly now. That's what matters. You're 19. You're figuring it out. That's all any of us can do. Figure it out. Do better. Grow. Ruby left at noon. Promised to text after talking to Grant. Maggie watched her car pull away. Felt lighter and heavier simultaneously. Lighter because Ruby understood. Heavier because the coming storm with Grant would be brutal. She texted Julianne. Ruby was here. We talked, really talked. She's going to set boundaries with Grant. I think she's finally seeing the truth. His response was immediate. I'm proud of her, and of you. Want me to come over? No, stay with your prep. I'm okay, really okay. And she was. Okay. Not great, not terrible, but okay. And okay was progress. The storm arrived at 2 in the afternoon. Maggie's phone rang. Grant. She stared at the screen. debated not answering. But avoidance wouldn't solve anything, wouldn't make it go away, would only give him ammunition. Look how she avoids communication, how she refuses to co-parent, how she makes everything difficult. She answered, "Hello, Grant. What did you tell Ruby?" His voice was ice, sharp, cutting. The voice he used when he was furious but trying to maintain control. "She just left here. She's upset. She's talking nonsense about boundaries and manipulation and using her as a weapon. What poison did you pour in her ear?" I told her the truth. Your version of the truth. No, the actual truth. About last night, about our marriage, about your patterns of behavior that she's old enough to recognize now. My patterns? His voice rose, the control slipping. You've poisoned her against me. You've turned my daughter into your weapon. This is exactly what you've always done. Played the victim, made me the villain, turned everyone against me. The audacity, the projection, the absolute refusal to take any responsibility. I poisoned her? I'm the one who poisoned her? Grant, you called her at 11 at night to complain about seeing me in a restaurant. You used her as your emotional support animal. You made her feel responsible for your feelings. You expected her to manage your moods and validate your version of reality. And now that she's setting boundaries, you're blaming me? The words came out clear, strong, louder than she intended but steady. She never had problems with me until you remarried, until that French chef got in your head, until you started this new life and decided the old one wasn't good enough. Julian has nothing to do with this. This is about you and me, about 20 years of your behavior, about the patterns Ruby is finally old enough to see clearly, the criticism, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the using people as tools rather than treating them as humans. You're rewriting history. I was a good husband, a good father. I provided everything. I gave you the house, the car, the lifestyle. I made one mistake. 8 months isn't one mistake. It's 240 deliberate choices. And that's just Brittany. We both know there were others. The credit card receipts, the late nights, the perfume, the lies. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending Brittany was an isolated incident. Silence. Heavy. Telling. Damning. You have no proof of that, Grant finally said. But his voice wavered, just slightly, just enough. I don't need proof, I know. I always knew. I just didn't want to accept it. Didn't want to believe the man I married was capable of that level of betrayal, that level of disrespect, that level of cruelty. So that's it. You're going to throw away 2 decades over suspicions and paranoia? Over your insecurity and jealousy? I threw away nothing. You threw it away. Every time you cheated, every time you lied, every time you made me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. I'm just refusing to pretend otherwise, refusing to carry your shame, refusing to protect you from the consequences of your choices. The kids need both parents, Margaret. Don't you dare use the kids as an excuse. Ruby just told you she needs boundaries. Tommy has been in therapy for a year dealing with the divorce and your impossible expectations. They need parents who are authentic, who model healthy relationships, not parents who perform a fake marriage while destroying each other behind closed doors. I never asked you to leave. You left. You gave up on us. You quit. The old pull, the familiar manipulation, the voice that said maybe he's right, maybe she gave up too easily, maybe she should have tried harder, fought longer, been more patient, more forgiving, more understanding. But then another voice, stronger, clearer, her own voice, Ruby's voice, Julienne's voice, Dr. Chen's voice, the voice of every woman who'd ever escaped something toxic and survived. I didn't give up on us, Grant. I gave up on the fantasy that you'd ever see me as an equal partner. I gave up on waiting for you to love me the way I loved you. I gave up on destroying myself to maintain your comfort. I gave up on teaching my children that love means accepting mistreatment. I gave up on dying slowly inside a marriage that was killing me. So dramatic, always so dramatic. Everything is a crisis with you. Everything requires big emotions and grand gestures. No, I'm done being dramatic. I'm done performing emotion to get you to take me seriously. I'm stating facts. We're divorced. We co-parent. We are civil when necessary. But we are not friends. We are not confidants. And you don't get to use the children as messengers or weapons or therapists. Is that what your French husband told you to say? Did he write you a script? Coach you on how to be cruel to your children's father? No, that's what I'm telling you. This is me, finding my voice, using it, not apologizing for it, not softening it, not making it more palatable so you won't be uncomfortable. You've changed. Yes, I have, dramatically, wonderfully, irrevocably. Not for the better. That's your opinion. Mine differs, Julian's differs, Ruby's differs, my therapist's differs, my friends differ. The only person who thinks I've changed for the worse is the person who benefited from me being small and silent and accommodating. Silence again. Then, Brittany is pregnant. The words landed like a bomb. Maggie's stomach dropped. Her breath caught. She waited for the pain, the jealousy, the rage. But what came was something unexpected. Pity. Just pity. Congratulations. Is that all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Grant? I hope you're happy. I hope you're more present for this child than you were for Ruby and Tommy. I hope Brittany doesn't wake up in 15 years and realize she's invisible to you. I hope this baby doesn't grow up walking on eggshells around your moods. You're bitter. I'm honest. There's a difference. I'm not bitter. I'm free. There's a difference. I'm not angry. I'm indifferent. And that scares you more than anything. Because you need me to be bitter. You need me to be stuck. You need me to be miserable so you can feel good about your choices. The kids will have a half-sibling. That affects them. That involves you whether you like it or not. Then tell them, honestly, don't dress it up. Don't make excuses. Don't paint Brittany as some innocent victim. Just tell them the truth and let them process their feelings. Ruby's an adult. Tommy is 16. They can handle truth. What they can't handle is more lies. Like you did, turning Ruby against me? I didn't turn Ruby against you. You did that yourself by using her, by lying to her, by expecting her to manage your emotions, by making your relationship with her conditional on her validating your narrative. She's 19, Grant. She's your daughter, not your therapist, not your emotional support animal, not your validator. I'm done with this conversation. Good, I'm done too. Tell Brittany I said congratulations, genuinely. I hope things work out better for her than they did for me. I hope you've learned, I hope you've grown, I hope you've changed, but based on this conversation, I doubt it. They will work out better because she's not you, because she's younger, more flexible, more understanding, more supportive, everything you weren't. The parting shot, designed to wound, designed to leave her bleeding. And it did hurt, but not the way it would have 2 years ago, not the way he intended. You're right, Maggie said calmly. She's not me. She's younger, more compliant, more willing to accept your treatment. For now, but 10 years from now, when she has your baby weight and your responsibilities and your exhaustion, when the shine wears off and real life sets in, when she's tired and overwhelmed and needs actual support instead of criticism, she'll be exactly like me, and you'll be exactly like you. And this pattern will repeat because you haven't done the work. You haven't changed. You've just found a new victim. She hung up. Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. But underneath the adrenaline, peace. Actual peace. Not the fake peace of avoidance. Not the fragile peace of walking on eggshells. But real peace. The peace of speaking truth. Of setting boundaries. Of refusing to be diminished. She said it. All of it. The truth she'd been holding for years. Swallowing, digesting, letting poison her from the inside. And the world didn't end. Grant didn't win. She survived. More than survived. She won. The hardest part is admitting I knew all along. I knew he didn't love me the way I loved him. I knew the marriage was broken. I knew I deserved better. I just needed to believe it enough to act on it, to choose myself, To walk away from something comfortable into something unknown. Maggie sat on her couch, breathed, processed, let the adrenaline drain away. Her phone buzzed. Julian. Text. Thinking of you. Are you okay? Maggie. I just told Grant the truth. All of it. And I'm okay. Really okay. Julian. I'm proud of you. Come to the restaurant later? I'm testing new desserts. I need your palate. Maggie. I'll be there. She put the phone down, looked around her apartment. Small but hers. Peaceful but alive. Nothing like the Westchester house with its perfect facade and rotten foundation, with its expensive furniture and toxic atmosphere, with its beautiful exterior hiding so much ugliness inside. She'd lost so much in the divorce. The house, the lifestyle, the identity, the fantasy of the perfect family, the dream she'd been sold since childhood. Get married, have kids, live happily ever after, except nobody mentions what happens when happily ever after turns into barely surviving. But she'd gained everything that mattered. Her voice, her peace, herself, her future, her freedom to exist without apology, without compromise, without making herself small. Maggie drew a bath, hot, almost too hot. She added lavender salts, the kind Grant always complained about. Too flowery, gives me a headache, makes the whole bathroom smell like a spa. Why can't you just use regular soap? She sank into the water, closed her eyes, let the heat work into her muscles. The tension from the phone call with Grant slowly released, dissolved, floated away with the steam. The small bathroom window was cracked. Cool September air mixed with warm vapor. The contrast was perfect, balanced, like her life was starting to be. She thought about Brittany pregnant, about Grant becoming a father again at 45, about the baby who would grow up with an older father, a father who already had 2 kids he barely knew how to love, who treated parenting like a performance rather than a relationship. She should feel something, jealousy, anger, vindication, but she felt nothing except a distant pity for Brittany, for the baby, for Grant, who would repeat his patterns because he doesn't know how to change. Because change requires acknowledging fault, and Grant had never been good at that. The water cooled. Maggie added more hot, extended this moment of peace. No one needed her. No one demanded her attention. No one made her feel guilty for taking an hour to herself. No one was timing her bath or making comments about wasting water or suggesting she had better things to do. This is what freedom feels like. Not dramatic, not explosive, just quiet, simple. The ability to take a bath without anxiety, without rushing, without apology. She stayed until her fingers pruned, until the water went lukewarm despite multiple refills, until her body felt loose, relaxed, whole. Later, dressed in comfortable clothes, Maggie headed to Manhattan. Julienne's restaurant, Beaumont, sat in the West Village. Small, exclusive, 32 seats, 1 Michelin star with a second rumored to be coming. The kind of place that required reservations months in advance. She entered through the back. The kitchen was controlled chaos. 5 in the afternoon, prep for dinner service. Julian stood at the center, calm, commanding, in his element, tasting, adjusting, teaching, every movement efficient, precise, no wasted motion. He saw her, his face transformed, softened. Ma chérie, perfect timing. He pulled her aside, away from the heat and noise, into his small office, barely more than a closet, desk, chair, filing cabinet, photos of his mother on the wall, the strong woman who'd raised him alone. How are you? Really? I'm good. I told Grant the truth. He didn't like it, but I survived. More than survived. I felt strong, clear, not angry, just done. Of course you survived. You're stronger than you think. Stronger than he ever wanted you to believe. I'm stronger than I was. That too. He kissed her forehead, gentle, sweet. Come, I want your opinion on a tarte tatin. I'm trying a new technique, caramelizing the apples differently, lower heat, longer time. Just as they returned to the kitchen. Julian introduced her to his team. They'd met before, but he reintroduced her each time. This is my wife, Maggie. She has excellent taste. Don't let her politeness fool you. If something is wrong, she'll tell you. She's my best critic. Being introduced as someone with value, as someone whose opinion matters, as someone more than just wife or mother or daughter or ex-wife, as herself, it never gets old. It never stops feeling revolutionary. Julianne presented three variations of tarte tatin. Traditional, one with cardamom, one with black pepper. Maggie tasted each carefully. Let the flavors develop. Considered. The traditional is perfect, classic, exactly what you expect. The cardamom is interesting, unexpected. It works. The black pepper is too much. It fights the apple instead of complementing it, distracts from the fruit. Julianne nodded. Exactly right. Pierre, we go with cardamom as the special. Traditional on the regular menu. Pierre, the sous chef, grinned at Maggie. A young man from Brittany. Talented, ambitious. Chef listens to you more than us. That's because she's smarter than all of us, Julian said without irony, without diminishing, without making it a joke. Just stating fact. They worked for another hour. Maggie sat at the small desk in the office, edited a manuscript for a client, freelance work for a small publisher, developmental editing. The work Grant called a hobby, the work that now paid her rent and gave her independence. Her phone buzzed. Ruby. Ruby. Talk to Dad. Set boundaries. He's furious. Called me ungrateful. Said I was brainwashed. But I did it. I'm proud of myself. Maggie. I'm proud of you too. Are you okay? Ruby. Yeah, sad but okay. He's my dad. I love him. But I can love him and still protect myself from his toxicity. Those things can coexist. Maggie. That's exactly right. Call me tomorrow. Ruby. Will do. Love you, Mom. Thank you for showing me I could do this, that I could choose myself without being selfish. Maggie leaned back, blinked against sudden tears, both kids reaching out, both kids wanting truth, both kids choosing health over performance, over pretending, over the facade of the perfect family. She'd done something right, despite Grant, despite Eleanor, despite her own mistakes and failures and moments of weakness. She'd raised two kids who could think critically, who could set boundaries, who could choose themselves without guilt. That was her legacy, her victory, her triumph. Not the house or the money or the social status, but this. Two humans capable of authentic relationship, capable of growth, capable of change. Another text. Tommy. Tommy. Ruby told me what happened. Can we talk? Not on the phone, in person? Maggie. Of course. Pizza Friday like always? Tommy. Yeah, can Julianne come? I want to actually meet him, not just the awkward wave at custody exchanges. Maggie, was det money? Maggie. I'll ask him. I think he'd like that. Tommy, cool. Thanks, Mom. Maggie showed Julianne the texts. He read them and smiled. Friday night, the three of us. I'll make sure I'm free. This is important. You don't have to. I want to. These are your children. They're important to you. That makes them important to me. That's what partnership means. What a concept. What a revelation. What a relief. Not being alone. Not being the only parent who cared. Not being the only one willing to do the work. Friday arrived with autumn rain. Steady, gray. The kind of rain that makes you want to stay inside with comfort food and good company. Tommy showed up at 6, soaked, shaking water from his hair like a dog. 16 years old, looks like Grant, acts like Maggie, quiet, thoughtful, observant, the kind of kid who sees everything but says little. Julianne arrived 10 minutes later. He'd closed the restaurant for a private event earlier, was in casual clothes, jeans, sweater, looking younger than his 38 years. Less chef, more regular person. They ordered pizza, 2 large, extra cheese for Tommy, pepperoni and sausage, half veggie for Maggie, Julianne's choice for the 4th half. They ate in the living room, comfortable, easy. So you're a chef, Tommy said. Not quite a question, more an opening. I am. Have been for 20 years, since I was 18. Is it hard? The hours seem intense. It's very hard, long hours, hot kitchens, high pressure, demanding customers, exhausting. But I can't imagine doing anything else. They talked about cooking, about what Julienne's restaurant was like, about the Michelin star. Tommy asked questions, real questions, not just making conversation, actually interested. Then, Ruby called me, told me about the restaurant thing, about Dad's version versus Mom's version. Here it comes. Maggie braced herself. And, she asked, and I believe you. Tommy set down his pizza. I've been thinking a lot lately. About the divorce. About why it happened. Dad always said you gave up, that you didn't try hard enough, that you were selfish, that you chose yourself over the family. Maggie's chest tightened. And you believed him? At first, yeah. I was 14. I was angry. I wanted someone to blame, and you left. You were the one who moved out. So I blamed you. Said terrible things. Refused to talk to you for months. I understand you were hurt. You were processing. But then I started noticing things. How Dad talks about Brittany the same way he used to talk about you. How he's never satisfied. How he criticizes everything. How nothing is ever good enough. How he makes jokes that aren't really jokes, that are actually just insults disguised as humor. I'm sorry you've had to notice those things. Sorry you had to see your father clearly. Sorry you lost the fantasy of the perfect dad. It's hard when kids see their parents as flawed humans instead of infallible authorities. I'm glad I noticed, because it made me realize it's not you, it's him. You didn't give up on the marriage. You gave up on being treated badly. There's a difference. Tears pricked Maggie's eyes. Thank you for seeing that. I'm sorry it took me so long. Tommy's voice cracked. I'm sorry I was mean to you after the divorce. I said you were selfish, that you only cared about yourself, that you destroyed our family. I said terrible things. You were hurt. You were 14. You're forgiven. You were always forgiven. Just like that? Just like that. You're my son. I love you. You processed your pain the only way you knew how. I never stopped loving you through it. Not for 1 second. Tommy cried, actually cried. 16-year-old tears of relief and regret and love. Maggie held him like she did when he was small, when nightmares woke him, when other kids were cruel, when the world felt too big and scary. I don't want to end up like Dad, Tommy said. I don't want to treat people the way he treats people. I don't want to make someone feel small to make myself feel big. Then don't. You have a choice. You can see his patterns and choose differently. Choose to be aware. Choose to do the work. Choose to be better. But what if I can't? What if it's genetic? What if I'm doomed to repeat his mistakes? Julienne spoke up, gentle but firm. Behavior isn't genetic, it's learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. Your awareness of your father's patterns is the first step. The second is choosing differently, every day, in small ways and big ways. They talk for hours about school, about Tommy's dyslexia and how he learned to advocate for himself, about his girlfriend, Sarah, about his fear of not being good enough, his fear of letting people down, his fear of repeating Grant's mistakes. You're aware of the patterns, Maggie told him. That's half the battle. The other half is doing the work. Therapy, self-reflection, choosing to be better every day, being willing to apologize when you screw up, being willing to change. Are you in therapy? I was, for 2 years after the divorce. It saved my life, literally. I don't know if I would have survived without Dr. Chen. I think I want to go, not just the couples counseling with Dad, my own therapist, someone who's just for me, who I can be honest with without worrying about it getting back to anyone. I'll set it up. I'm proud of you for asking, for recognizing you need support. That's strength, not weakness. They cleaned up together. Tommy lingered at the door. Julienne, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you love my mom, like really love her, not just because she's there or because it's convenient? Julienne didn't hesitate. I love your mother more than I knew it was possible to love someone. She's brilliant and kind and strong and funny. She challenges me. She makes me better. She makes me want to be better. Yes, I really love her. Tommy nodded, satisfied. Good. She deserves that. She deserves someone who actually sees her. After he left, Julian pulled Maggie close. Good kid. He is, despite everything. Both of them are. Not despite everything, because of you. You gave them one parent who was present, who listened, who loved without conditions. That's everything. Maggie leaned into him, felt the solidity of his chest, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. This was real. This was what love looked like. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but showing up, being present, seeing someone and choosing them anyway. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes, but I chose myself. And in choosing myself, I taught my children to choose themselves. That's everything. That's the legacy that matters. A week later, Maggie received an unexpected call, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, usually spam, robocalls, people wanting to extend her car warranty or refinance her student loans. But something made her answer. Hello? Maggie, it's Brittany. The voice was small, uncertain, shaking. Please don't hang up. Maggie's first instinct was to do exactly that. Hang up, block the number, protect herself, but curiosity won, or maybe something deeper. Empathy, recognition, understanding. I'm listening. I need to talk to someone. Someone who knows Grant, who knows the truth about him. Someone who won't judge me or tell me I'm crazy, and you're the only person I can think of. Brittany, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. We're not exactly friends. I know. I know what I did. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed your marriage. I know I'm the last person who should be calling you. But please, I'm 6 weeks pregnant. I'm terrified. And I'm starting to see things I didn't see before, things I couldn't let myself see. Maggie closed her eyes. She could say no, could protect herself, could let Brittany learn the hard way, could walk away and feel justified doing it, could watch Grant's new marriage implode without guilt. But she remembered being young, being pregnant with Ruby, being convinced Grant's criticism was love, being certain she could fix him with enough devotion, enough patience, enough sacrifice, enough of her. Where are you? Coffee shop in Scarsdale, near the house, your old house. I know you probably don't want to come back here. I know it's asking too much, but I didn't know where else to suggest. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The drive to Scarsdale felt surreal. Maggie hadn't been back since moving out, hadn't driven these streets, hadn't seen the Colonial with its perfect lawn, hadn't wanted to, but here she was, parking in front of the coffee shop she used to frequent, walking in, seeing Brittany in a corner booth. She looked young, so young, scared. Nothing like the confident assistant Maggie remembered from office parties. The girl who'd smiled and laughed and flirted with every man in the room, who'd worn her power like armor. Now she just looked small, vulnerable, human. Maggie ordered tea, sat down across from her. You wanted to talk, so talk. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I wouldn't have, if I were you. I wasn't sure I would either, but here I am. I owe you an apology, a huge one. What I did, the affair, it was inexcusable. There's no defense, no justification. I destroyed your marriage. I hurt your children. I caused pain I can never undo. Yes, you did. All of that is true. I told myself you didn't love him, that your marriage was already over, that I wasn't really hurting anyone, that I was just there for him when he needed someone, that you didn't understand him the way I did. Those were lies you told yourself to justify your choices. I know that now. Brittany's hands wrapped around her coffee cup, shaking. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not even asking for understanding. I'm asking for truth. What was it like being married to him? Because I think I'm starting to understand, and it's terrifying. Maggie studied this woman. This girl, really. 28 years old, pregnant, trapped in the same cycle Maggie escaped, about to learn lessons Maggie could have warned her about, had warned her about, in the way she'd fought for her marriage, in the way she'd refused to let Grant go easily. It was death by 1,000 cuts, Maggie said honestly, bluntly. Nothing Grant did was overtly abusive. He never hit me, never screamed, never called me names, but he criticized constantly. Subtle jabs, Dismissive comments, gaslighting when I questioned him, making me doubt my memory, my perception, my reality. He does that to me. Brittany's voice broke. I thought it was just stress, the pregnancy, the hormones, but it's getting worse. Last night I mentioned feeling nauseous. He said I was being dramatic, that I needed to toughen up, that pregnancy isn't an excuse for weakness. That sounds like Grant. And when I got emotional about it, he said I was hormonal, that I was overreacting, that pregnancy doesn't make women incapable of being rational, that I needed to get control of the self. The recognition on Brittany's face, the dawning horror of realizing she'd destroyed a marriage to be with a man who was destroying her. It's almost too painful to witness. But Maggie stays. She witnesses. Because someone needs to tell the truth. Someone needs to break the cycle. Do you have support? Maggie asked. Family? Friends? Anyone you can talk to honestly? My family is in Ohio. They were upset about the affair, about me being with a married man. We haven't really talked since the wedding. They didn't come, said they couldn't support it. And friends? Grant says our couple friends from before are your friends, that they chose sides, that we need to build new friendships together, that starting fresh is healthier anyway. Isolation. Classic abuser tactic, cut off support systems, make the victim dependent, make them believe no one else understands, no one else cares, that he's the only one who really loves them. Brittany, listen to me. You have choices. You have time. You don't have to stay. Pregnancy doesn't trap you. Being married doesn't trap you. Only you can trap yourself by refusing to see what's happening. I'm pregnant with his child. How can I just leave? Yes, you can. Women do it every day. Is it hard? Yes. But staying is harder. Trust me, I stayed 20 years. I have the scars to prove it. I wasted decades trying to love him into being better, trying to be good enough, trying to fix him. It doesn't work. He has to want to change, and he doesn't. But I love him. Do you, or do you love the version of him he shows you when he wants something? The charming Grant, the successful Grant, the Grant who makes you feel special. Because that's not the real Grant. That's the performance. The real Grant is the one who criticizes you for being pregnant, who isolates you from your family, who makes you doubt your reality. Brittany stared at her coffee, silent, processing. Finally, how did you know when to leave? When staying hurt more than leaving. When I realized I was teaching my children that this was what love looked like. When I understood I deserved better. When one more day felt impossible. Did you ever regret it? Leaving? Not once. Not even in the hardest moments. Not when I was living in a tiny apartment. Not when I was crying at 3 a.m. Not when the kids were angry with me. Not ever. Because even the worst day alone was better than the best day walking on eggshells around Grant. They talked for 2 hours. Maggie didn't sugarcoat, didn't rescue, didn't make decisions for Brittany. She just told the truth. About the marriage, about the patterns, about the gaslighting, about the slow erosion of self, about the years it took to rebuild, about the therapy, about the hard work of healing. Grant told me you were bitter, Brittany said, that you poisoned the kids against him, that you made everything difficult out of spite, that you couldn't handle him moving on. And now you're seeing his pattern. He's setting up the narrative. So when you eventually question him or leave him, he can tell the next woman the same story, that you were bitter, difficult, impossible to please, crazy, hormonal, unstable, all the words he used for me. The next woman. Brittany's face crumpled. There will be a next woman. Won't there? Probably, unless he does serious work on himself, real therapy, deep self-reflection, genuine accountability. But that requires admitting fault, admitting weakness, admitting he's the problem. And Grant has never been good at that. Brittany wiped her eyes. What should I do? I can't tell you that. I can only tell you what I did and what I wish I'd done sooner. But your path is your own. Whatever you decide, just make sure it's your decision. Not his, not your family's, not society's expectations. Yours. Why would you help me after what I did, after I destroyed your marriage? Because I was you once. Young, convinced I could love him into being better. Certain my love was enough. It wasn't. And I don't want you to waste 20 years learning that lesson. I don't want you to look back at 43 and wonder where your life went. I don't want you to teach your child that love means sacrifice without reciprocity. They exchanged numbers. Brittany left with resources, therapist recommendations, divorce lawyer contacts, women's shelter information, just in case, just to have options, just to know she wasn't trapped. Maggie sat alone with her tea, remembering, processing, marveling at how far she'd come, how much she'd healed, how different she felt. 3 years ago, Brittany was the enemy, the other woman, the homewrecker, and in many ways she was. Her choices hurt Maggie, hurt Ruby and Tommy, devastated a family, shattered trust, caused pain that took years to heal. But she was also a victim of Grant's charm, of his manipulation, of a system that tells women their worth comes from landing a successful man, from being chosen, from being special. Helping Brittany doesn't erase the pain, doesn't excuse the affair, doesn't make them friends, but it transforms the narrative. From bitter ex-wife seeking revenge to empowered woman helping another woman escape the same trap. From victim to survivor to ally. That's victory, not revenge, not watching Grant fail, not gloating over his struggles, but transcending the pain entirely, rising above it, becoming someone who helps rather than hurts. Maggie texted Julian, "I just had coffee with Brittany, Grant's pregnant wife. Long story, but I think I just made peace with my past, or at least with part of it." His response was immediate. "You are extraordinary. Can't wait to hear this story. Love you." The following week, Maggie hosted dinner. Tommy, Ruby, Julianne. Her small apartment felt even smaller with 4 people, but cozy, intimate, real. She cooked. Julianne assisted. More accurately, Julianne cooked and Maggie assisted. They made ratatouille, his mother's recipe from Lyon. Simple, elegant, perfect. Ruby set the table. Tommy made salad. Everyone had a role. Everyone contributed. Family, blended, imperfect, real. Nothing like the formal dinners in Westchester where Maggie did everything while Grant criticized and Eleanor judged. "This smells amazing, Mom," Ruby said. "Your stepfather taught me well. I just follow instructions." "Please," Julian laughed. "She taught me about home cooking, about food as love. I just taught technique. The heart was always there." They ate. Conversation flowed. Easy. Natural. Tommy asked Julianne about being a chef, the reality versus the fantasy, the hard parts people don't see. Julian asked Tommy about school, about his girlfriend, Sarah, about his plans. Ruby shared college stories. Her art history professor, who was brilliant but eccentric. Her roommate who played violin at 3 in the morning. The campus coffee shop where she studied. This is what dinner should be. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no waiting for criticism, no performing for approval, just people enjoying food and company. "Can I ask something?" Tommy said during dessert. Pear tart with cinnamon ice cream. "How did you know Julianne was different? From Dad? How did you trust again after everything?" Maggie and Julianne exchanged glances, a whole conversation in a look. "You want to take this?" she asked. "Together," Julianne suggested. "I knew," Maggie started, "because he listened, actually listened. When I talked, he put down his phone. He asked follow-up questions. He remembered details, small things, important things. He cared about my opinions even when they differed from his, especially when they differed from his. And I knew she was special," Julianne added, "because she challenged me. She didn't agree with everything just to keep peace. She had thoughts, strong thoughts, preferences, boundaries. She was a whole person, not just a reflection of what I wanted. That's attractive. That's partnership." "Dad never liked when Mom disagreed with him," Tommy said quietly. "He'd get this look, like she'd insulted him, like disagreement was disrespect." "No," Maggie agreed, "he didn't. But that's not love. Love celebrates differences. It doesn't demand conformity. It doesn't require you to disappear into the other person. Real love wants you to be more yourself, not less. Ruby spoke up. I've been thinking about this a lot, about what healthy relationships look like, because I don't want to repeat patterns. I don't want to end up with someone like Dad. And watching you two, seeing how you treat each other, it's teaching me what to look for, what to insist on, what to walk away from, and what to avoid, Tommy added. No offense to Dad, but I don't want to be like him. I don't want to make someone feel small to make myself feel big. I don't want to need someone to be less so I can be more. The fact that you're aware of it, Julianne said seriously, means you won't. Patterns repeat when we're unconscious of them, when we don't examine them. You two, you are very conscious. You're doing the work. That's everything. They cleaned up together, the four of them, a team, loading the dishwasher, putting away leftovers, wiping counters. When Tommy and Ruby prepared to leave, they both hugged Maggie longer than usual. Thanks, Mom, Ruby whispered, for showing us what's possible, for not staying in something broken just to keep us together, for choosing yourself, for teaching us we can choose ourselves too. Thank you for understanding, Maggie whispered back. Thank you for not hating me, for seeing the truth, for giving me a chance. After they left, Julian poured wine. They sat on the couch. The apartment was quiet, peaceful. Outside, the city hummed, car horns, sirens, the constant background noise of New York. But inside, there was peace. You raised incredible humans, Julian said. They raised themselves. I just tried not to damage them too much, tried to give them one stable parent, one person they could count on. You did more than that. You modeled resilience. You showed them leaving is possible, that starting over is possible, that happiness after heartbreak is possible, that love doesn't have to hurt. I learned something through all of this about myself, about marriage, about love, about what I deserve and what I won't accept, about the difference between being alone and being lonely, about the difference between peace and silence. What's that? Julian asked. That the prison door had been unlocked all along. I'd been my own warden. I stayed because I was afraid, afraid of disappointing people, afraid of failure, afraid of being alone, afraid of what people would think, afraid of proving Grant right, afraid of everything except the one thing I should have been afraid of, wasting my life in something toxic. And now? Now I barely think about him at all. He's Tommy and Ruby's father. That's his role in my life. Nothing more, nothing less. He has no power over me, no claim on my emotions, no space in my head except when absolutely necessary. Julian kissed her temple. That's freedom. Yes, Maggie agreed. That's freedom. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, spring rain fell softly. Inside, there was warmth, laughter, love. The kind of love that doesn't demand perfection, that celebrates authenticity, that allows space for growth, that sees flaws and chooses the person anyway. Maggie's phone buzzed. Text from Brittany. Brittany, I told Grant I need couples therapy or I'm leaving. He refused, called me dramatic, said I was being manipulated by my family. I'm staying with my sister in Ohio. Thank you for showing me I have choices, for being kind when you had every right to be cruel. Maggie, I'm proud of you. Stay safe. Reach out if you need anything. You're stronger than you think. She showed Julianne the text. He nodded. Good for her. How do you feel about it? Relieved, sad for the baby, sad for Brittany, but mostly relieved that she got out early, that she won't waste 20 years, that she'll have a chance to rebuild sooner rather than later. Grant's going to lose it. He's going to blame you. Probably already is. Let him. His narrative doesn't control my reality anymore. He can tell whatever story he wants to whoever will listen. My story is different now. Better. True. And that was the truth. Grant could tell whatever story he wanted. Paint Maggie as the villain, the bitter ex-wife, the woman who couldn't let go, the one who poisoned everyone against him. It didn't matter. It didn't. Because the people who mattered knew the truth. Ruby, Tommy, Julian, Claire, Dr. Chen, the people in her life who actually saw her. The rest was just noise. 3 months later, December, the holidays approached. Maggie had plans with Ruby and Tommy for Christmas. Grant had them for New Year's. The custody schedule worked. Mostly, they'd found a rhythm, not easy, not comfortable, but functional. She was back at Bellissimo with Julienne, full circle. They were meeting Marcus about expanding the wine program, but really they were here because of symmetry, because this is where the story shifted, where Grant's cruelty backfired, where Maggie's transformation became visible to others, where she stopped shrinking. Marcus greeted them warmly. Welcome back. I have to tell you, that scene months ago, it's become legend here. Our staff still talks about it. The woman who stood up to her ex-husband with perfect grace. The chef husband, the comeuppance. It's like a movie. Oh no, Maggie laughed. That's embarrassing. Don't be embarrassed. It was the most dignified response to rudeness I've ever witnessed. You didn't match his energy. You didn't stoop to his level. You just held your ground. Class act all the way. They were seated at the same corner booth. Maggie glanced at the bar, where she'd sat that night, where everything changed, or rather, where change became visible. The real change had been happening inside for months, years. That night was just the moment it surfaced. Her phone rang, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Hello? Maggie, it's Eleanor. The voice she never expected to hear again. Grant's mother, the woman who never liked her, who blamed her for everything, who'd spent 20 years making her feel inadequate, small, wrong. Eleanor, this is a surprise. I need to speak with you. In person. It's important. I'm not sure that's a good idea. We don't really have anything to discuss. Please, I know I have no right to ask. I know I've been terrible to you. But it's about Grant and the children and things I need to say, things I should have said years ago. Maggie's stomach tightened. Are Ruby and Tommy okay? They're fine, but Grant isn't. And I need your help understanding what's happening, what I did, what I enabled. They arranged to meet the next day, a neutral coffee shop in Westchester. Maggie told Julian. He offered to come. She declined. This was something she needed to do alone, face to face with her past, with the woman who'd made her feel like she'd never be good enough. The coffee shop was busy, Saturday morning. Families, couples, people reading newspapers. Eleanor sat in a corner. She looked older, frailer, less imposing than Maggie remembered. Age had softened her somehow, or maybe suffering had. Maggie sat down across from her former mother-in-law, ordered tea, waited. Thank you for meeting me, Eleanor began. Her voice was smaller than Maggie remembered, less certain. I know I don't deserve your time. I know I've forfeited any right to ask you for anything. What's this about, Eleanor? Grant and Brittany are divorcing. She left him, took the baby, filed for full custody, filed for child support, moved back to Ohio. He's devastated, angry, blaming everyone but himself. Maggie processed this, tried to feel something, but all she felt was distant acknowledgement, like hearing about weather in a place she used to live. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not surprised. Are you sorry after everything he did to you? I'm not happy about his pain, but I'm not celebratory either. I'm just neutral. He's a human being. Humans suffer. That's how it works. Eleanor's face crumpled. Ruby and Tommy barely speak to him. He calls them. They don't answer. When they do see him, they're distant. Polite but distant. Civil but cold. He's losing his children. Watching them slip away, and he doesn't understand why. He's losing his children because of his choices, not because of anything I did. Not because they're punishing him, but because they're protecting themselves, setting boundaries, choosing their own mental health. I know that now. Eleanor's voice broke. Real emotion, not performance. I defended him for so long. Blamed you, blamed Brittany, blamed the kids. Told myself you were the problem, that you were cold, unforgiving, dramatic, that you never valued family the way you should have. The validation from Eleanor after all these years should feel triumphant, should feel like winning, but it just felt sad, empty, too late to matter. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe you an apology, a profound one, an apology I should have given you 20 years ago. But I was too proud, too blind, too invested in my fantasy of who my son was. Maggie waited, silent. I was cruel to you. For 20 years, nothing you did was ever good enough. I questioned your parenting, your housekeeping, your appearance, your cooking, your choices, your worth as a person. And you absorbed it all with grace I didn't deserve. You kept showing up, kept trying, kept being kind even when I was awful. I did those things because I loved Grant, because I wanted his family to be my family, because I hoped eventually you'd accept me, that I'd finally be good enough. You were always good enough, more than good enough. The problem was never you. It was me and Grant and the fantasy I'd created, the perfect son, the successful businessman, the family man. None of it was real, but I needed it to be. So I made you the problem, made your imperfections the issue, instead of facing the truth about what I'd raised. Eleanor wiped her eyes. Ruby told me about your new husband, about how happy you are, about how different everything is now. She said you glow, that you're lighter, that you laugh more, that you're more yourself than you've ever been. Ruby talks to you? Occasionally, when I manage to ask about her life instead of defending her father, when I manage to listen instead of lecture, she's teaching me. Both your children are. Teaching me to see beyond my own narrative, to question my assumptions, to admit when I'm wrong. They're remarkable kids. They are, because of you. Grant provided financially, but you provided everything else. The emotional support, the unconditional love, the wisdom, the modeling of resilience. All you, and I never acknowledged that. Never thanked you, never told you that you were a good mother, the best mother those kids could have had. Sitting across from the woman who made her feel inadequate for 2 decades, hearing an apology, and feeling nothing except peace. No vindication, no triumph, no satisfaction, just peace. That's how Maggie knew she'd truly healed, that Eleanor's words couldn't hurt her anymore. But they also couldn't heal her. She'd healed herself. I accept your apology, Maggie said carefully, clearly. But I need you to understand, I don't need it. I've moved past needing your approval or your regret. I'm telling you I accept it for your sake, not mine. For your peace, not mine. Because I already have peace. I understand. Eleanor's smile was sad, genuine. Grant is alone now, bitter, blaming everyone but himself, refusing therapy, refusing to change, refusing to admit fault. And I'm watching him destroy his life, destroy his relationships with his children, destroy every good thing he has, and I can't fix him. I finally understand I never could. No, you can't. He has to want to change. He has to do the work. You can't do it for him. But I wanted you to know, I see it now. I see what you lived with, what you endured, what you escaped, what it took to leave, what courage that required. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Sorry I didn't support you. Sorry I made it harder instead of easier. They parted with a brief hug, awkward but genuine. Eleanor left. Maggie sat alone with her tea, processing, marveling at the strangeness of life, how things come full circle, how people change, how healing happens in unexpected ways. She didn't need Eleanor's apology, didn't need her acknowledgement, but it was nice to have it anyway, nice to know she wasn't crazy, wasn't imagining things, wasn't the problem. She'd always known that intellectually, but hearing it from Eleanor somehow made it more real, more solid, more undeniable. She texted Julian. Eleanor apologized for everything. 20 years of cruelty. She sees it now, sees Grant clearly, sees what I escaped. His response, how do you feel? Maggie, peaceful, just peaceful. It doesn't change anything, but it confirms everything. Does that make sense, ma'am? Julianne, perfect sense. Come home. I'm making cassoulet. Your favorite, Ande. Home, such a simple word, such a profound concept. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was a person, a feeling, a sense of safety, of being seen, of being valued, of being enough exactly as she was. Christmas arrived with snow, rare for New York, but perfect, like a movie. Ruby and Tommy spent the morning with Maggie and Julienne. They'd moved into a small house in Terrytown. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Tiny yard. Nothing like the Westchester Colonial. But theirs, together. Equal names on the deed. They opened presents in pajamas, drank coffee, ate cinnamon rolls Julienne had made from scratch. Ruby got art supplies, books on modern art, a museum membership. Tommy got new headphones, books on tape for his dyslexia, a graphic novel collection he'd been wanting. They gave Maggie a framed photo, the 4 of them from Thanksgiving. Candid, laughing, real. Nothing posed, nothing performed, just family. "We wanted you to have this," Ruby said, "to remember that this is real, that you did it, that you built something better." Maggie cried. Happy tears, healing tears, grateful tears. They spent the afternoon cooking together, Julienne teaching Ruby and Tommy techniques. Patient, encouraging, never critical, never demanding perfection, just enjoying the process. The togetherness. This is what the holidays should be. Not performance, not stress, not walking on eggshells, not trying to make everything perfect. Just people who love each other spending time together. Making food, making memories, making mistakes, and laughing about them. That evening, after Ruby and Tommy left, Maggie and Julienne sat by the small Christmas tree. White lights twinkling, the house smelled like pine and cinnamon and possibility. "Do you think about him?" Julienne asked. "Grant, do you think about what he's doing tonight? Whether he's alone?" "No, not really. Sometimes I wonder, but it's like wondering about a stranger. Someone I used to know, not someone who still has power over me. That's growth. That's freedom." Maggie sipped her wine. "2 years ago, I would have been thinking about him all day, wondering if the kids wish they were with him instead, wondering if I'd made the right choice leaving, wondering if I was being selfish. Now I barely think about him at all. He's just their father. That's his role, nothing more." "And Eleanor, do you think about her?" "Sometimes. I think about how sad it must be to realize at 70 that you enabled your son's worst behaviors, that you blamed the wrong person, that you missed the truth for decades. That's a heavy thing to carry." "You have compassion for her." "I do, not because she deserves it, but because I'm free enough to have it, because compassion doesn't cost me anything anymore, because I can afford to be generous when I'm no longer under attack." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that feels full rather than empty, the kind of silence that speaks of comfort and safety and home. Looking back, I can finally see. The best revenge wasn't humiliating Grant at the restaurant, wasn't watching his new marriage fail, wasn't getting Eleanor's apology, wasn't any external validation. The best revenge was building a life so full, so rich, so genuinely happy that he became irrelevant to my joy, that his opinions stopped mattering, that his approval became unnecessary, that his absence became a blessing rather than a loss. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked. "That I won, not by destroying him, but by building myself, by choosing myself, by loving myself enough to leave, by doing the work, by healing, by opening myself to love again, by trusting again, by being vulnerable again. That's winning." "You did win. You're winning. You'll keep winning." "We're winning," Maggie corrected, "because you're part of this, because you chose me too, because you see me and love me anyway, because you celebrate my strength instead of feeling threatened by it." Always. They went to bed early, exhausted from cooking and hosting and being present. Maggie fell asleep quickly, deeply. No anxiety, no checking her phone, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just sleep. Pure, restful, healing. 6 months later, June, early summer, Maggie stood in the kitchen of their house, sunlight streaming through windows, coffee brewing, Julienne's garden visible through the back door, tomatoes and herbs and flowers, growing, thriving, alive. Ruby had graduated college, double major in art history and business, already had a job lined up at a gallery in Manhattan, already had her own apartment, already was building her own life. confident, strong, whole. Tommy was thriving in therapy. His dyslexia didn't define him anymore, didn't limit him. He'd found his voice, his passion, photography. He was good, really good. Had won a local competition, was planning to apply to art school. Grant had visitation with his new baby daughter, but struggled with consistency. Brittany had full custody, was rebuilding her life in Ohio, dating again, slowly, carefully, with her eyes open this time. She texted Maggie occasionally. Updates, gratitude. Friendship was too strong a word, but connection, understanding, solidarity. Eleanor sent occasional texts, friendly, respectful, but no longer demanding space in Maggie's life, no longer expecting time or energy or forgiveness, just quietly existing on the periphery, doing her own work, facing her own truth. Julian came up behind Maggie, wrapped his arms around her waist, his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? That night at Bellissimo, how angry I felt, how humiliated, how Grant's cruelty in that moment changed everything, how it forced me to confront how far I'd come, how different I'd become. Changed everything how? It was the moment I realized I'd won. Not because I embarrassed him, not because Julianne appeared like some knight in shining armor, but because I was there with you. Living proof that leaving him led to something better, something real, something worth the struggle. And now I barely think about him at all. He's Tommy and Ruby's father. That's his role in my life. Nothing more, nothing less. He exists, I exist, but in completely separate orbits, and that's exactly how it should be. Julianne kissed her neck. That's freedom. Yes, Maggie agreed. That's freedom. Outside, birds sang. The neighbor's dog barked. Life continued. Normal, ordinary, beautiful in its ordinariness. Maggie's phone buzzed. Text from the Culinary Institute, the place where she'd met Julian. They were hosting an anniversary celebration. Former students invited. A reunion of sorts. Text to Julian. Want to go to the cooking class reunion, the place we met? Julian. Only if you promise to let me properly dice the chicken this time. Your technique has improved, but you still murder poultry with that knife. Maggie. I do not murder poultry. I aggressively persuade it into smaller pieces. Julianne. That's what all the great chefs say right before they're asked to leave the kitchen. She laughed, really laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from joy, not politeness. The kind of laugh Grant once told her was too loud, too much, too attention-seeking. But there's no such thing as too much anymore. Not in this life, not in this love, not in this freedom. Maggie looked around her kitchen, at the herbs growing in pots on the windowsill, at the copper pots Julian had given her for their anniversary, at the photos on the refrigerator, Ruby and Tommy, Julian's mother, her friend Claire, moments captured, memories made, life lived authentically. 3 years ago, she'd stood in another kitchen, trapped, invisible, dying slowly, measuring her words, monitoring her volume, making herself small, apologizing for existing, for wanting, for needing, for being human. Now she stood in this kitchen, free, visible, vibrantly alive, laughing loudly, taking up space, existing without apology, wanting without guilt, needing without shame, being fully, completely, unapologetically human. The woman at the restaurant that night, confronted by her ex-husband's cruelty, handled it with grace. But more importantly, she handled it with strength. Not borrowed strength, not temporary bravado, not performance, but genuine, earned, permanent strength. That woman was Maggie, is Maggie, will always be Maggie. And no amount of Grant's narrative, Eleanor's past judgment, or societal expectations could change the truth. She won. Not by destroying him, but by building herself, by loving herself enough to leave, by doing the work of healing, by opening herself to love again, by trusting again, by being vulnerable again, by choosing herself, by teaching her children to choose themselves, by showing them what love actually looks like, what partnership actually means, what respect actually feels like. That in the end is the only victory that matters, the only revenge that heals, the only triumph worth celebrating. She built a life so good that her past became irrelevant. She built a love so real that her ex-husband's opinion became meaningless. She built a self so strong that external validation became unnecessary. And that's how she knew she truly won. Not when Grant was humiliated at the restaurant, not when his new marriage failed, not when Eleanor apologized, but when she stopped caring about any of it, when she stopped checking his social media, when she stopped wondering what he was doing, when she stopped needing him to acknowledge what he'd done, when she stopped waiting for an apology that would never come, when she stopped defining herself by what she'd escaped instead of what she'd become. That's when she won. That's when she was free. That's when the story really began. Not at the restaurant, but here, in this kitchen, with this man, with this life, with this version of herself she'd fought so hard to become. Maggie poured another cup of coffee, stepped out onto the small back porch. Julian's garden spread before her, green, growing, thriving, like her, like them, like the life they'd built together. Not perfect, not easy, but real, honest, whole. She breathed in the summer air, felt the sun on her face, heard the birds singing, tasted the coffee, smelled the herbs, all five senses engaged, all present, all alive, all hers. This, this is what winning looks like. Not a mansion, not a fancy car, not a perfect body or a prestigious job or a flawless family, but this, coffee on a Tuesday morning, birds in the garden, a partner who loves her, children who are healing, peace in her soul, freedom in her heart, the ability to exist without fear, the capacity to love without losing herself, the knowledge that she's enough, exactly as she is, right now, this moment, this breath, this life. That's winning. And Maggie had won. Maggie's story is one of courage, of choosing yourself when everyone expects you to stay small, of building something beautiful from the ashes of something broken. If this story resonated with you, if you saw yourself in Maggie's journey, if you know someone who needs to hear that leaving is possible and happiness is real, do me a favor, hit that like button. It tells me these stories matter, that your time here mattered. Drop a comment below. Tell me what moment hit hardest. What part made you think? What scene made you feel seen? Your words create community. They help other women know they're not alone. Share this with someone who needs it. That friend who's struggling. That sister who's doubting herself. That woman who thinks she's trapped. Send her this. It might be exactly what she needs to hear today. And subscribe to this channel. Because every week I bring you stories of women who chose themselves, who found their voices, who built lives worth living. Real stories, honest stories. Stories that remind you that you're stronger than you think. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to take up space, to laugh without apology, to exist without fear, just like Maggie. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about stories that matter. I'll see you in the next one.